I watched some anime, I read some manga, I'm gonna talk about them now. So a lot of people recommended that I check out Ping Pong the animation, and I did, and it was really good. If you're not familiar, this is ostensibly a story about two characters that play ping pong, and that really didn't excite me when I heard about it because
I don't give a shit about
ping pong.
It's boring.
But while ping pong is obviously very important to the show, it's more about kind of the characters, and it's more about the really interesting themes that run throughout, such as why do people try to be the best at things? Do you have to be good at something to enjoy it or participate in it? What really makes somebody get good at something? What is the real drive and motivation? And I guess most critically, how do the organization around sports, around these activities, actually kind of steal the joy from people? It's an interesting investigation into these kind of topics and themes that run throughout. And it's really amazing that kind of every single character in this show, from the most major ones to the minor ones, is really fleshed out. One of my favorites is just this guy that shows up and he loses a ping pong match and then he decides he's going to quit ping pong, and randomly in episodes you see him going around and trying new things. And at first it's kind of confusing. Like, why are they spending time on this character we don't even know the name of? But I guess small spoilers, at the end, he comes back and just watches a ping pong game and realizes that he loves it. And it kind of drives home that thread I mentioned that goes throughout the story, that like you don't need to be the best to have fun at something and enjoy it and have it be important in your life. And there's even some fun, subtle stuff that I think I picked up on, at least. Maybe I'm overreading it, but for me, there's a pretty clear but kind of background theme about men mistreating women or ignoring the value that they bring to their lives. Like, this show is incredibly focused on men versus men, the relationships between men. It could be called Sausage Fest, the animation. But there are a few female characters scattered throughout, and the way characters interact with them really reflects things about kind of where they are. One of my favorite characters in the show is a guy who comes over from China to compete in Japanese ping pong, and loses but decides to stay and becomes a coach, and through that he actually kind of mellows out. It's a very satisfying kind of character arc. But there's a scene in the middle of the show where all the characters are shown how they're spending the kind of Christmas holidays, and most of it's pretty miserable. The only one that actually seems to have any kind of joy is this character, and it's because his mom has come back from China and he ends up cooking with her, and the entire team he coaches ends up cooking with her, and they kind of spend that time together. In contrast, one of the main characters, who's kind of crashing out at this point, is shown going through one of many girls that he doesn't actually care about. She brings him a Christmas present, he has nothing for her, she dumps him on the spot. The present has a bit of alcohol in it, he ends up getting drunk and just kind of falling asleep, and it sucks. Another character, you literally see the fantasy that this woman that he interacts with has for them to be happy together, and he just can't see it because he's too busy practicing alone in his room, and he loses the chance. And that's just one scene, but it's not lost on me that when the character that's crashing out eventually gets back into ping pong, it is with a woman coach who explicitly demands, makes him speak to her as though she is his lover and make him say that he loves her, etc. I don't know, maybe other people didn't see it, maybe the author didn't intend it, but I thought it was like an interesting thing, and it made it feel that the female characters in this story, while many of them are very, very minor, are not unimportant. They actually are part of the story that needs to be told. I will say, for me, the kind of guideline of if an anime is like a masterpiece is if it makes me want to read the manga, and I kind of don't. There are some kind of weird things that happen at the beginning that eventually do pay off, but it takes so long that I was very confused as to why they were happening. And while I mentioned one of the main characters kind of crashing out, I feel that kind of crash out took a bit long, and they ended up just sort of spinning their wheels. But these are really, really minor complaints overall. Indeed, my biggest complaint with the show is just a completely subjective one that shouldn't be taken seriously, and that's that the art style really kind of creeped me out. Like, during the intro, there's a screenshot of one of the characters having gum pop in their face and they lick it off, and it was just like one of the most unpleasant things of this. I had like a visceral reaction to it. But the animation itself is really stellar and very well animated, and I'd much rather have a show try a different kind of weird and almost uncomfortable animation style and me personally not love it than just generic anime style art. There's no question that the show oozes individuality. And one thing I absolutely cannot end this review without mentioning is that the sound design on this show is a masterpiece. The way they make the impact of the ping pong balls against the table or against the paddle like feel real and constant, just this back and forth of balls moving almost throughout any scene that anyone's playing the game, is incredibly well done, and I think is like a masterclass in how to do really, really effective sound design. All in all, thank you to everyone who recommended it to me. I give it an 8, and I'd say definitely check it out. In contrast, unfortunately, another recommend I got, I have to say I'm less passionate about, and that was Food for the Soul. This is just mid. People recommended it to me because I said I really like Yashike stuff like Bocchi the Rock and especially Yurukan, but like, for a show that's supposed to be about like cooking, there's very little cooking in this show. Like, I honestly think that there's more cooking that happens in Yurukan, and it's better animated too. It looks more delicious. They barely cook once an episode, if that, and it's very, very hurried. And I think the most disappointing part is that you don't learn anything about cooking. Like, Yurukan takes the time to kind of talk about how camping actually works. And Bocchi the Rock kind of goes through some of the nitty-gritty of making a band and learning how to practice. In this show, they set it up like they're gonna do that. They have the main character who's good at cooking but kind of shy. One of the other characters also has a background in cooking, works at a restaurant. And then the other two characters don't know how to cook. So they have a cooking club and they're gonna learn how to cook, right? Well, no, one of them just like sits around and plays ukulele and the other one does stuff. And so there's not even a point where the main character has to like teach them how to cook and you learn how to cook a recipe. They just do it. It's boring. And while it goes into the classic Yashike combination of every single character is quirky, they're not actually interesting. Like, the first character is shy and antisocial, which kind of works like Bocchi, so fine, whatever. But then they actually later introduce another character who's also shy and antisocial, and it's like, what does this add? It is amusing to see the two personalities kind of fail to play off each other initially, but ultimately it doesn't do much. And the most fleshed out character just has the traits of that she drinks too many energy drinks and likes wearing sheep clothing. And I don't know. I tried really hard with this show. I made it through over half the episodes in the season, but I couldn't do it. And the fact that there's only a 1-point difference between this and Yurukan on the ratings on like My Anime Network just makes me think I'm not going to trust that website at all. Like, if you compare this to something like Delicious in Dungeon, which is also about food, or at least says it's going to be about food, in that show, they make disgusting things look delicious. This show can't even make delicious things look delicious. When I...
こちらはタレをつけて焼いてみるか。完成じゃ。たてがみ、ネック、レバー、バラ、テール、もも、ロース、野菜。
When I watch Yurukan, I want to go camping even though I don't like going outside. When I watch something like Bocchi the Rock, I want to play an instrument again, even though I don't have the time or the talent. When I watch this show, all I wanted to do is watch a different show, and that's unfortunately what I did. On a quick but more positive note, I did finish the second season of DanDan, and I thought it was pretty good. I especially enjoyed the arc in the house, but I really hated this character, and the fact that they seem to be a main character is not making me excited for the next season. And the fact that season ends by introducing a potential another character makes me worried that instead of developing the relationships between the main characters who I already liked, it's going to be one of those things where they just bounce characters off each other until everyone's bounced off each other and then add a new character and then do that and nothing moves forward. And I'm nervous about that. I will watch the third season, but if it goes that way, I'm going to probably give up. Anyway, on to literature and reading. I'm up to date with Freeland. I still think it's excellent, but in order to kind of scratch my itch for Western-influenced Japanese fantasy, I listened to some other recommends and started reading Tongari Boshi no Atelier, and it's great. If you haven't read it, it's fantastic. There's an anime coming out, and the previews for it look pretty good, but if you're impatient or you just want to see some of the best manga art you'll ever see in your entire life, I recommend reading the comic. I will say, that compared to Delicious in Dungeon and Freeland, manga that I'm both a very big fan of, I would actually put this one third, but it's very close. Art-wise, no question, this is the top. The author is incredibly talented, not only drawing fantastic page-wide spreads, but also just drawing really silly panels that kind of break the fourth wall a bit to have a laugh. And she really knows when to add detail and when to pull it back, creating just a really beautiful visual experience throughout every single volume of this comic. I will say that it took a while to get started. Like, I didn't know what the manga was really about. Like, yes, obviously from the beginning, it's about a girl who learns magic. Like, the deeper themes, it took a while for them to kind of show, but once they did, they all felt really, really earned and well-deserved. It's just that, like with Freeland, by the first volume, you understand that this is a story about the passage of time and people's relationships, and that thread is strong throughout. With Delicious in Dungeon, it sets itself up as a silly story about food and does kind of rug pull it from you, but that's sort of the intent. With this, you're kind of like, okay, what's the bigger point? And fortunately, the stories at that point are all interesting in and of themselves. They're very well done stories, they're well drawn again. But for me, it was like volume 4 or 5 where I started to go, oh, okay, this manga is about something other than the literal content that's in it. But those themes are good. The world is really, really fleshed out. The balance of politics between magic users and non-magic users makes a lot of sense and feels very, very complex. And I have to give this manga a whole lot of credit for how it depicts the conflict between the good wizards and the bad wizards, in that the ones who are quote-unquote good, they're following the rules of magic, if you will, are sometimes conflicted. Is the law because it's correct? Are we supposed to obey these laws even when it means that people will come to harm? And some of them are following the laws of magic, but are just kind of bad people. In contrast, the villains and the temptations that they offer people, the ones who are breaking the laws of magic, the rules that are set down for magic users, their motivations for doing so make sense, and their attempts to kind of seduce characters to their side also make sense. If a character, no spoilers, ever does go to their side, you can see why the character would make that interpretation, even if the manga is also very clear that these are bad people, and they are either doing bad things or playing with things they don't understand the consequences of. They're not simply, blobs of evil cackling about the misery they cause. Their choices make sense within the logic that they've kind of trapped themselves into. And even better, every single protagonist is just a fun character that you want to root for. And the manga is also surprisingly kind of just effortlessly diverse. There are characters of all different kind of backgrounds living in a city that feels very, very much like a metropolis where people would come from around the world to check it out. And you also see a diversity of relationships in a way that feels like effortless. It's a really great story and it's pretty well told. And again, the only negative I really have to say is that sometimes I think the pacing isn't perfect. But that didn't stop me from making it to the end of the most recent volume. The volume itself ends in a way that's really sweet and made me worry that it was actually the series. I thought it was the end of the series, but fortunately it is still going. I'm a little nervous that this is going to be like a 50-volume thing that's going to take forever to finish. But as it stands, all the threads that are still untied are really exciting, and I'm looking forward to the next volume, as well as the anime. I also, because I liked the anime, decided to sit down and read the manga for It's Time for Torture Princess, and I have to say, I'm kind of disappointed. It's still good, but this is a case of something where I think that having it in a visual, moving form just elevates everything. The pacing of a comic doesn't really make the jokes land, and the animation in the anime does a great job of making the food just look delicious. It looks good in the comic, don't get me wrong, but the anime kind of elevates that. And I think the humor, the jokes really land better when you have some strong voice acting behind it, which the anime does. So all in all, if you like the anime and you think, hey, I'm going to read the manga, I'd say you don't have to. Whereas in contrast, if you're wondering which you should go for, I would say absolutely the anime. For an obscure recommendation, I also read Heterogeneous Linguistics. This is like, the hole in the past. This manga is made for me. It's about a linguist who goes into what they call Makai, or like the demon world, the world of monsters, and does linguistic anthropology in the world. It's great. He's only fluent in one of the languages of the area when he arrives. So while his narration is in perfectly normal Japanese, he has to talk in broken Japanese, and the manga literally blacks out parts of people's speech when he can't understand what they're saying. I've never read something that gives you the feeling of being disfluent before, and this does a really great job. There are panels in this that are just you can read it over and over again and you don't fully understand what's going on because you're not getting full information because everything's filtered through a guy who doesn't fully understand the languages that he's listening to. And there's tapping-based languages, there's dancing-based languages, there's all kinds of creatures communicating in all kinds of ways, and you can only understand them as much as the protagonist can. His understanding develops over time. It's very, very good at showing kind of the sensation you have of going into another culture and trying to understand their practices, which may seem weird to you. Indeed, one of the key plot points is that people on the human side of things often present these monsters as, monsters. But in reality, the logic of their world makes sense when you understand kind of their culture. Like one story is that humans tell these monsters don't care about their dead because they eat them and they don't bury them. And when you find out the reason why this is happening, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I've really never read a comic that nails that feeling of, even just like studying abroad for the first time and kind of having culture shock, trying your best to understand and appreciate things that to you seem completely strange and perhaps even not understandable, made worse by the fact that your language abilities aren't good enough to ask why things are happening. It's delightful. It's also published very slowly, so I don't know when the next volume is going to come out, but read it, up the sales a little bit so that it gets published faster. See no salt, I'll translate your comic. It'd be fun, I'm perfect for it. Let's get some English copies out there. And then finally, there's only 2 volumes of this out so far, but I happened to be at a bookstore in Japan, and they had an advertisement for the top 10 manga of the year as chosen by Kono Manga ga Sugoi, which is a big ranking thing. And the #1 manga for men, it's a men's comic, was this one. This is about a guy who takes over a used bookstore, and it's full of manly stories, like this woman who wants to wear a kimono in a way that shows her individuality rather than following the rules. Or a story about a high school girl who is tired of men hitting on her when she just wants to read a book. Man stuff. I don't know why they divide things the way they do, but this is just a really good comic. It's a bunch of vignettes centered around this used bookstore run by a young owner who quit his salaryman job to take it over. And they're all charming stories about how people are connected through using books, through reading books, just through liking books, or just sometimes even just attending the bookstore. Given that there's only 2 volumes, I don't know if there's like a bigger plot that is going to develop, but as it stands, I can see why it's rated so highly. It's incredibly well written. The stories are all really satisfying in their own right. They don't have to connect to something bigger as they make sense. Their themes and their plots make sense within a short story. And grounding them all in this bookstore also just is a really clever way to bring a bunch of diverse characters together and tell stories that otherwise wouldn't really link as clearly. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. Definitely check it out. I haven't read any of the other top 10 here, but I will say that this comic here is apparently about a salaryman and a host who cross paths as the host is leaving work and the salaryman is going to work to spend 15 minutes eating at the same place. And that's a great premise. And so, I don't know, why don't you read it and tell me if it's good? Anyway, thank you for letting me waste your time. That's what I think about things. The end.